Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nice Guy Deep Dive, where my friend Addie and I take a deeper look into topics we find interesting. So I'm Ben. I'm in New York City.
And I'm Addy, and I'm in London, United Kingdom.
I'm sorry, I should have said I'm in New York City, New York, the United States,
Yes.
North American
Yes,
continent.
exactly.
I'm at, I kid him all the time, but that's okay. We're friends.
Well, the, the,
So,
the British are much more formal, you see. So
oh,
that's where it
Lord.
comes from.
It's called big stick up their ass. But anyway, that's another topic. So
Is that
today,
another town? Big stick up their ass, New York. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
probably Westchester. Anyway, hold on. Let's. So we're gonna get going. So, um, I decided to come up with a topic for today. Addie chose the last two, and I wanted to talk about what does it mean to be a man. So I think Addie asked me, I think you asked me in the WhatsApp, where did I get this topic? And I just kept thinking of the book, because I think I told you last time I was going to pick something from the book, but that's kind of like what the whole book is about, right? It's kind of like,
Yeah.
how do you be a man? How do you be a man and still have feelings? How do you be a man and still have boundaries? How do you be a man and ask for what you want in bed, right? So that's kind of like the whole thing that kind of came into my head was, what does it mean to be a man? I mean, it's not real. Is it the same as in the 50s? Has it always been the same? It's just that, social constructs change things, sensitive men, rugged men, whatever. So that's going to be our topic. And there's really two things I think we're going to talk about at the beginning that might be kind of intertwined, at least you think so, and I think so too. Authenticity and accountability. So first, what do you mean
Yeah.
by accountability as it pertains to what does it mean to be a man? Talk about accountability.
Yeah, I think so. Accountability essentially, at least for me, is that like, hey, as a man, if I am actually wanting to achieve my own goals for myself, and if I'm wanting to achieve for people I love and care about, I have to be like, I have to be accountable and at least be true to my word or true to what I promised. And I think that making a habit of that over the long term is actually what can propel you more towards what you want and success in your life as a man. So essentially, I believe accountability, that's what it means to me in terms of authenticity. I would say
Oh, let's
authenticity
hold
is,
on. Let's go. Let me get accountability. Then we'll talk about
yeah, sure,
authenticity. I
sure.
want to
Go
want to
ahead.
kind of separate them and then we'll combine them. So yeah. So this is
Yeah.
really interesting about accountability. I'm taking a business. I have a business coach right now. I told you about this. And my coach, Stephanie Ray, calls herself the accountability evangelist. But what's so interesting about what she does with accountability, it's not like she's holding me accountable. She's not like, did you do your homework? Did you eat your veggies? It's not that. She's holding me, she's saying, Ben, have you achieved your goals? Why not? What's going on? And it's up to me to hold myself accountable to the goals, but she kind of gives me a pathway. So accountability is really, it's really much, I think you said this, it's being true to my goals, being accountable to
Yeah.
myself, being accountable to my friends and family, meaning that when they need me, I'm there. Um, being held accountable for the things I say, not hiding from it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, social media
Actions and
today,
words both in some
action
way.
in deeds, right? Actions and words, being accountable and being responsible. That could be another thing, responsibility, but they're all kind of intertwined. And I like that you brought up accountability because I didn't think of that one, but I do think it's so important. It's so funny. I think all of these could be as a person or as a woman or as a human being, but we're talking specifically about things pertaining to men. And I'm wondering if you think men are held to a different standard regarding accountability versus maybe, let's say, women. Um,
Hmm. That's a,
that's
yeah, that's a very
because
interesting question, actually.
I know, right? It's kind of like I don't want to compare, but I'm wondering if we need to in order to really kind of separate what does it mean to be a man? Because if everything was equal, then we probably would never have this question, and probably hundreds and thousands of books would never be written on
Yeah.
the topic. So
Yeah.
Do you think accountability is different for men and women?
I would say so, yes. And I for people want to say that that's a controversial answer. I don't really think it's controversial because I think the way men interact with each other a lot of the times is very much based on a culture of accountability to some extent. Because essentially, if let's say we make plans to meet up and then we didn't show up for 2 or 3 times, right? And we kind of be like, hey, I talked to this guy, we talked it clear, we discussed our feelings or something, or we were direct with each other. And that's just a way, like, I feel a lot of the times I've noticed that, like, communication with other men. But I have noticed, and this is not speaking for all women because I'm not a woman, so I'll have to, I know you put that qualifier out there, that's not speaking for all women, but for my friends who are women and who interact with other women, I've noticed that they give each other a lot of leeway for many things, which you might not between two men, essentially, because I have a friend and she makes plans to meet up with this other friend, and she doesn't show up once, doesn't show up twice, or if she shows up like an hour and a half late, like she'll totally be okay with her and still love her in spite of that.
Wow. Does
And,
she,
and,
I mean,
and,
does she
and
at least
that's very
call?
interesting to me.
Does she at least call to say she's going to be late?
I think
Or
so.
does
I
she
think
really
she
just
does.
blow her off?
No, but so I think she does, but my friend recognizes that, like, this person who does that, her personality is very much like last minute, or her personality is very much like rambling and all over the place, and she doesn't, like, have her stuff together. So I've noticed, like, her actually forgive that. But I was thinking from my perspective, like, how often have men each other forgiven for these kind of things? Like, we're like, oh, like 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Like it's like if I don't have a podcast with Ben, like 6 p.m. and 6:01, Ben's there, right? And I know that I'm also gonna be there. If I'm not, I'll text Ben. I'll be like, hey, I'll be 10 minutes late. But so it's very interesting.
I didn't really think of it that way. I'm very, I'm good at with once. I'm not good with twice. I've had people, we set a schedule. It's on my calendar, and they don't show. And I don't get angry. I'm more annoyed because they're not valuing my time, and they're making it that their time is more important, and to them it is, but not to me. So I do find it disrespectful, but I don't flip out about it. I just email them. Like one time I was having I scheduled a meeting with this guy, Jordan, who is one of the guys I mentor. And it happened to be that we switched to daylight savings time before the UK, and he's in the UK. So we were an hour different. So I emailed him like, what the heck, what's going on? I didn't know this until he explained. I'm like, oh, okay. So stuff happens, right? But it's really interesting. You talk about men and responsibility or accountability to other men. I'm trying to think if I treat men differently when it comes to accountability versus treating women differently. I don't know if I do. I mean, I'm a little more leeway, like, for example, if it's a friend, right? If it's a friend, and I know circumstances, I'll be a little more tolerant, but I will say my piece. I will set my boundary if that needs to be the case. But if it's business, I'm not so, it's a little harder.
I would say from a business perspective, they're more similar, because essentially from a business perspective, you have a defined agenda, essentially, when you are going with someone. And if you don't have a defined agenda, there is professional decorum and professional courtesy that you have to show, no matter a man or woman, right? This is more like with people and just like your friends and even family.
Well,
and in fact,
I gotta say though, something that just struck me is that when my friends either don't return a call or a text or something, I feel more hurt. I don't feel hurt if a meeting is missed. I get more annoyed or maybe even upset, but I don't get hurt. But with friends and family, yeah, I do get hurt. It really bothers me on a more personal level. But
and so indirectly, you're actually holding them, not like if they missed a meeting, you're actually holding them accountable indirectly.
If who misses a meeting, a business person or a friend?
Your friends. You're friends.
I'm holding
You
them
are actually
accountable
holding
if
them
I,
accountable indirectly.
well, if I make them aware of it. If I
Yeah.
don't, and I expect, like, if they said they were
Then
going to call,
that's a covert contract. If you
no,
if
no,
you
no,
if
no,
you
no, not if they said, I was thinking
okay.
that, but if they said they were going to
Mhm.
call and didn't, that's not a covert contract. I have every right to be upset because they said they would call. I expected them to call. That's not a covert contract where they didn't say anything and I expected them to call.
No, what I'm saying is like if you would be mad about it, but you wouldn't actually talk to them about it, then that would be a covert
Well,
contract.
that would be literally doing myself a disservice and not talking about
Yes.
my boundaries. I've done that before. It's not good. I've done that with some friends for years. It's not good. And it ends up blowing up. It always ends up blowing up in my face, our face kind of thing. I want to talk about that and then authenticity. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that if you're authentic, if that word gets thrown around, but I like the word authentic. For me, it's me being me. I'm not me all the time in every situation. I mean, I'm with you in a certain situation. I may not be that with the head of some company. That could be weird, but I do strive to be authentic in every situation as best I can. I mean, I think that's kind of like the most I can do and still exist in the world. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was gonna like, before I know we were talking about like, accountability earlier, and
Yeah,
the reason I was gonna jump to authenticity is because I think
yeah,
they're so intertwined. They're just
100%.
so much to do with like, actually being true primarily, or true to what you want, and essentially also matching that up with, let's say, your goals or people's
Mm-hmm.
expectations or requirements of you. And being authentic has always been difficult for me. I mean, and I think I've reached a much better place in my life now. I think in the past I was not as much. So
Why do
speaking
you
from a personal perspective,
why do you think that was? I know for me why it's not, why I
yeah,
wasn't authentic growing up, and I'm happy to talk about it. But you brought it up, and I'm curious to see what you have to say
sure,
about that.
sure, yeah. I think it was at the beginning, it was just that even if I do like state my feelings, no one's gonna hear or no one's even gonna care. It was kind of like a lack of audience in
But
that sense, or not.
did
It's like
you,
thinking
was
like even
that
if I say
true?
it,
Was that true or just something you believed?
just something I believed. It was not
Gotcha.
true.
Yeah.
It was not
Yeah.
true, but that's what I
Yeah.
believed, and it was like,
Yeah.
oh well, it actually matters. People, if you do like talk to the right people, they do care about what you think and how you feel about stuff, and that held me back for a long time.
I'm reading Daring Greatly, which you've read, Brene Brown, and she does talk about, those the people you share with have to be able to hold space. And I think for me as a kid, I didn't have anybody that would hold space for me unless I was whatever it was I was supposed to be. So I don't think I was really authentic
Hmm.
probably until I moved to New York when I was 33. That's a long time to be inauthentic, not disingenuous. I wasn't fake or phony. I just wasn't really me. When I was a kid, a lot of it was because I knew I was different. I didn't know what gay was, but I knew I was different. And I felt I had to hide it for whatever reason. The occasional joke you hear or something. And of course, kids making fun of you. You know, kids sense things in other people before you do, right? So,
Hmm.
I was called names and all this kind of stuff. So that just made me not want to be myself. I mean, I look at kids today and I'm like so amazed at how they are who they are and they dress how they dress. And, that's just kind of
Yeah.
how it is. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't think I really started to understand my own authenticity until I moved to New York in 1999.
Hmm. This is very interesting because let me follow up with a question, because I'm an only child, and I think part of solitude when you're growing up and not sharing is because, well, you're the only child. In your case, you mentioned that you do have siblings. So did you ever share with your sisters
Not at
or
all. No, because
no?
I didn't know what to share. I mean, when I didn't know what to share, I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't feel close enough to anybody in my family to actually share my feelings, to say, I don't know what's going on, but I feel this way. I did not feel that. I did not feel anybody was showing up for that. So I never shared it with anybody. You know, I just kind of had my own world, and then tried baseball, camping, you know, hanging with my dad, and whatever it is you do as a kid. And even when I tried to express myself through either art or dance or music or theater, I got pushback. My dad would go, you know, that kind of a thing. My dad was a cool guy. He would never say anything, but it was like, you know, that's great. Let's get you into football.
Very macho, very
no, it wasn't macho.
Fellow.
It wasn't macho. Just didn't understand.
You
know, I think dads want to do what their dads did, right? Their dads did for them, and he wants to do for his son, because that kind of seems to be the ingredients for how you're a good father and you raise a good son. And so I would do dance, and he would put me in basketball. I didn't work out in basketball. I would do theater. He'd put me in football. Didn't work out, right? So my dad was not like, you have to do. My dad was never like that. But these are the things. So I think I felt the solitude of an only child, because I couldn't. That's the closest thing I could even say to being an only child, because I had nobody to share this with. I didn't even share it with friends.
Wow, that's actually very interesting that you would have that kind of experience, because yeah, I like, at least from my perspective from the outside, of seeing friends that have siblings and like have a larger family, because either they grew up with their siblings getting along, or they all grew up like fighting constantly all the time, and now either they're very close or they don't talk at all. And I think in some cases, those are the two patterns that I've seen.
When you were growing up, though, I mean, you didn't have brothers or sisters, but did you ever feel like you couldn't be yourself, or were you always just yourself because your parents just were like, he's our star, whatever he wants to do, he does?
Yeah, I mean, hey, being an only child means that you are like the apple of your parents' eye. And I've been very lucky to have like an amazing mom and an amazing dad, and who were like helpful in every way, and like, you know, would support me. So I should have felt totally comfortable about expressing myself. But for the part of the reason I didn't, and I think that also comes down to something about seeing the way other boys at that age around you are expecting you to act, right? Maybe it's like a peer pressure thing, because if you're a teenager, like, you don't really know much about being a man. That's just true. That's just how it is, and you figure it out, and you try and you fail, and that's how you learn. So
I mean, the whole thing about
authenticity is a very important one for teenagers.
I mean, the whole thing about learning to be a man. I mean, we talk a lot about that in the book, right? You know, my dad worked from 9 to 5, like most dads, right? No farm, right? Nobody worked on a farm. We lived in a city. And he was the one I learned how to be a man from. God, I hope my mother doesn't watch this one, but I had a very strong mother, right? And that's a really big sign in our book of a nice guy, is a very strong female presence. And she really was the one who raised me. And learning to be a man, what that means, like within the book, I had to learn outside of that. So literally, when I moved to New York, I'm 3,000 miles away. I started that process of, you know, new apartment, totally on my own, knew nobody. You know, my relationship with my dad grew because we didn't have any interference. God, I hope she doesn't watch this. But we didn't have. My mother's a great woman. It's just she did what she knew. But yeah, so I mean, we learn from our fathers, our grandfathers, maybe our uncles, but I think I learned from my dad kindness. I don't know if that's how to be a man, but that's like an attribute that I value. But, you know, how to be a man, what does it mean to be a man? I think I really learned that from my since I moved to New York.
Mm. No,
Did you,
I
did
think one
you
of the
get
first
that?
things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, like I will talk about New York as well, like how I felt when I was in New York. And so one of the first things that I learned is like from my dad about being authentic and honest. My dad's a very, very honest man. Like he'll never do a wrong thing, and that's just the way he would tell me things when I was young. And I mean, I I would say, like, I'm not as like 100% honest as he is in every way. He's the most one of the most honest people you'll meet, and I'm actually very happy that he is that way, because it's like he's like a good role model for
But you
me.
were telling me though, you were telling me that that actually hurt him in some instances.
So the only thing with that was that sometimes if you know where you are and if you're too authentic in a corporate situation, right, that can kind of backfire on you. But even when my dad did that and did tell a former boss that he was not happy with the way he was being treated,
Mm-hmm.
and like even though he was like, obviously this guy's was his boss and so on, but I mean even he said that, like, that took courage and that took bravery, and I think he just knew where his boundary was, and I actually really support him for that, because I always commended him on knowing um, what actually his own personal core beliefs are. And then coming to New York and my time spent there, what you learn is that New York is a hard place, man. Like if you if you don't settle in, if you don't know, like, how to get out there and like do things on your own, or get out there and make an effort in making friends, it's the kind of city that can actually, like, take away your enthusiasm. And like again, and I know that because I'm from a city that's very much like New York. I'm from Bombay, where again no one cares about you, and it's like a mass of people, like a big financial hub, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, how's it like for you? I guess how was LA like? Because I know you grew up
Yeah,
there.
I
How
mean,
was the
yeah,
change?
I didn't like LA. I mean, I was very happy to get out of there. LA didn't do anything for me. I did meet my best friends out in, in college. So that was good, but I'm not going to let you off the hook so quick. I want to know something. So you admire your dad greatly for his honesty, but you said right here that you really you don't go that far in your own
Yes,
life. So
I
why
don't.
not? Why aren't you just following your dad's full on example and being, honest no matter what, or authentic to the 10th degree?
Yeah. That's a very good question, and I have thought about that before. And I think it's just we have two different styles. We have two different styles in the way we do things. And part of me, if I do have to be very emphatic and honest about something, like I'll probably be a little. I'm usually slightly more subtle about it, which probably means in that sense that I am more susceptible to the whole covert contract kind of thing, or even just
Mm-hmm.
like not setting strong enough boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just becoming like somewhat like of a, I guess, doing things that you might not really want to do, but just because you don't want to cause a problem, kind of
Mm-hmm. I
thing.
get that. I totally get that.
And I think it's also to do with being an immigrant, part of it, because honestly, as an immigrant, you have a lot of pressure when you move to an unfamiliar country with all these visa restrictions, and you have to do a lot of shit that you don't want to do, and you can't really speak up, because if you speak up, guess what? No one's going to care, honestly, in many situations.
So it's really about, I mean, like when I was saying that I strive to be authentic as much as possible, as often as possible, just because I don't think you could do anything 24/7. At least, maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe nuns do it. Maybe priests do it. I don't know. Maybe religious people do it. I don't even know. But I know for me that I kind of have to give myself a little break and say, listen, you're going to do the best you can in the moment, because I don't believe in perfect. You and I've talked about this. I
Yeah.
think perfect is truly the enemy of the good. Um, but you brought something up that is going to lead us to the next part. I put in our little thing about to talk about race, but you just said immigrant. And let me ask you something. Does being an immigrant change the way you are as a man? Because you're in a country, you are one way, and you are a man in this country. But now you come to a new country and things might not work the same, and you might not be treated the same, right? So does that change any of these things about accountability, responsibility, authenticity? Do you have to change those things in order to move through the new place?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You don't need to change them because I mean, being accountable and authentic still hold true, but you do have to realize that if you are in a new place that's outside your comfort zone, you're going to start like at the bottom, and you have to like build your way up, and you actually have to learn the rules in terms of things like your finances, and like things like like legal stuff, getting jobs, building a network, speaking the local language. If let's say you don't speak the local language, I was lucky to learn English in India, and so when I've lived primarily in English speaking countries, apart from 4 months in Germany, which was again very interesting. But it's like you have to literally speak the language of the people there, and I feel I've really adapted to being
Let me ask you,
to survive and even thrive in different locations.
But we talk about like your dad. I hope it's okay we're talking about your dad. This is I don't mean I just only because you brought him up. But you talk about your dad.
If he's watching, hey dad, like
hey daddy's dad.
Hey dad, love you. Just
hey dad, love you. But if you
can see the same to your mom, by the way. You can tell your mom, hey mom, I love you as well.
I know. I just don't want her watching this one today. I just don't want her getting upset. No, but what my question is, your dad is the most honest person who will say to his boss, I don't like this, I don't like that, I'm not going to be treated this way. But you come into a different country as an immigrant, if you do that to your boss, you will not have a job. So how do
some places, depends on the place.
But seriously, I mean, you come into New York, you get a job with anybody, and your boss does something and you say to him, don't treat me that way. You think he'll keep you?
You could get fired. You could just get fired. Yeah.
I mean, look what's at stake. Would you? The question is, would you say stuff like that? You need the job, you need the money because you have to pay for attorneys, you have to pay for all this other stuff, right? You're not just coming here to visit. You want to live here. Different.
Yeah, you have to literally evaluate the consequences at that point. Like if it's something that's going to cost you your job, and in many cases for immigrants, the job is linked to the visa, right? So what happens is when you lose the job, you could actually lose the visa and you have to leave the country. So the consequence of speaking up, like in my dad's case, was like, well, hey, if he gets fired, he'll look for another job. But in my case, if I get fired, I have to literally move to another country.
That's true.
And so you have to in consequences.
And in the way you approach things. I mean, again, you can strive for honesty at all times, but that's not reasonable, I don't think.
Yes.
And then
I agree with that.
But does that make us any less authentic? I mean, does that make, if we say, or any less of a man, or any, I mean, is being a man an ideal that we strive for? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it does personally, because I think that as long as A, it's not something that you're doing as criminal, B, like I'm not advocating dishonesty, but if someone does essentially break certain rules and is like, not being authentic about their actions because of a compromising situation they're in, or to prevent really negative consequence from happening, that doesn't make them less of a man. It's like that age-old debate: would you steal bread to feed your family? That's the ethical question that's actually underlying to this, and the question to ask as a man. Every man essentially has to ask that to himself at some point in their life. Are you gonna do that?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it feels like we've been talking about what does it mean to be a man within like business kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think there's different meanings, or it feels different if we're in personal relationships, because authenticity and honesty and responsibility and accountability are very, very important, right? That's trust. That's very super important. And not doing any one of those things could cause that trust to fail. So it's not just enough to strive for honesty. You need to be honest.
Yeah, because if it's a relationship, guess what? If you're not, it'll break down.
It'll break down
over time.
And that's what's
maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but like in a year or like 2 years.
But it's really interesting that I guess as men or as people, we can hold those two things, which are complete opposites. So in my relationships, I'm going to be 100% authentic. I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm going to be 100% accountable, 100% responsible. But in my social life, I mean, outside of my personal relationships, maybe my business life, I can't be all those things all the time. Responsible? Yeah, I could get the work done on time. But if I don't, will I say to him, I'm sorry I didn't get it done? This came up, or would I make up an excuse? Would I, right? Those are, right? It's a little different, or at least it feels different. I don't know if it should be different.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways, like the reason it's so difficult, and this is probably why a lot of men struggle with loyalty with women, and like obviously they have like obviously they've cheated on their significant other and they've hidden it from them for years. Like, I don't know if you know what the Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like he had like multiple love child with different women, and like and then 20 years later it all comes out like, oh, we did a DNA test and this person is your son or daughter or whatever it is, right? And at that point it's like, okay, so for 20 years were they inauthentic to their closest confidant, like someone who's there every day? And how did they survive for 20 years?
Well, I mean, if their spouse didn't know, then yeah, that's horrible. That's a complete.
I don't think she knew, like Maria Shriver.
I have no idea, but I'm just saying in general, if your spouse doesn't know, man, that's some deep crap that you did. That's some really deep stuff you did in that relationship. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm so much better now in my relationships than I was probably back when I was married. I think I think I'm a better man now than I was back then, because I think I've kind of added to my list of being a man that setting boundaries and being authentic and holding other people accountable to their word, as long if it concerns me or us. I'm much better now. I wasn't very good back in 2015, 2016 when I was married, but I'm much better now at it. I think as I worked at it, I made an effort to be aware, I mean, you've been doing No More Mr. Nice Guy. I'm in my second year of it, but you've done it for many years. Like
like I want to say 5
years, right? So you've had you've had a lot more time to reflect and to kind of, to reflect on all of it. What is the one thing that you're doing now that you didn't do prior to the book? I guess as a man, what is the one thing that you can say, as a man, I do this now, where I didn't do then?
Very good question. I think it is being okay with taking more risks. Being okay with that discomfort, right? Because huge. You don't know how the outcome is going to be, how things are going to turn out, but you've still taken the shot. You've still taken that opportunity. And I think while this also applies for women, so this is not just specific to men, but in the book, Dr. Glover talks a lot about nice guys and how we're afraid of taking risks and afraid of change and all that stuff. And I think that has been the biggest theme, actually being okay with being in the UK, multiple places, like actually, being okay with changing my life circumstances, the people I'm with in my relationship, even having a different circle of friends. It's just a holistic idea of putting yourself out there and sort of being okay with whatever comes back or if it doesn't come back.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking when I said 2015, 2016, that's not really accurate. I think my biggest risk was in 1999 when I decided to move to New York, and I moved, bought a one-way ticket, never been here before, didn't even know, never saw the apartment I got before I moved in. So that was my biggest risk, but it was just the very, very first step of this journey. But I don't think I ever got as clear on what it is to be a man until literally, I'm going to say within the last maybe 4 or 5 years, once my father passed away. I think, and then the book and meeting all of you, right? Meeting everybody in the group and Dane. I think that's when I really got a firm grip, so to speak, on what it is to be a man, and the things I was doing right and the things I could improve on. So it's really, yeah, so moving to New York was probably the biggest risk I think I've ever taken in my life. To that point, I've taken risks. That was a huge one. That was a really huge one.
Yeah, and I want to touch on this, and because you brought this up, and feel free to like not.
That's good. We'll do one more little segment, and then we'll call it okay.
Sure. Yeah, and I think all the points we looked at before we started talking, the one thing that I thought maybe you can talk to from personal experience is like how being a gay man actually changes society's expectations of you, or what kind of unrealistic I guess expectations you felt when you were not able to come out of the closet, and there's a whole bunch of things that goes on with that. So if you want to talk about it, I know it's a very personal topic.
No, I'm going to talk about it. Let me say this. Being a gay man, I don't know if it's, I assume it's different than being a straight man. I'm not straight, so let's just say that I'm a man who's gay, I'm a gay man. Things are different. I remember trying to act straight in certain instances, or trying not to be whatever too gay meant, but you can't be authentic that way, right? So it's complete opposite of authenticity. But all the same things apply, man, in my relationships, when I date somebody, or when I'm married, or when I'm in any relationship with, if I have a boyfriend or a partner or a spouse, all the same things apply. There really isn't anything different. Except maybe there are two deep voices, or we could share each other's clothing. Maybe that's like the only different thing than a straight relationship. But I don't think being a man is any more or less if you're gay or straight. Society is another subject. I'm very comfortable. I don't hide anything when I'm out. I don't try to be any certain way when I'm out, now or many years ago. But that takes time, but I think that takes time with anybody. I don't know if it takes more or less time if you're gay versus anything else. Maybe it does. I don't know.
Did you feel like, I guess, society sort of treated you differently because you came out of the closet, or before that? Did you feel any difference in society's perception of you as a man? Because I think the perception, now they knew that you were gay.
I think that, let me say this, there's before New York and after New York. So before New York, I think it was me in my head, of me trying to fix things, or me trying to compensate, and not just being myself, and kind of letting them deal with it. Me trying to fix it for them, whoever they are, right? But after New York, I'm in theater, so everybody's gay for the most part. So I'm in an industry where I've got a lot of like-minded people. I'm in New York. I got a lot of like-minded. I'm in a like-minded city. I felt very comfortable being myself here. I could only imagine the difference if I was in like some small town in Kansas. I think it would much different answer. Yeah, but honestly, I don't remember ever being specifically treated differently. I do remember being made fun of, or inappropriate jokes, or things like that I had to either laugh at, but I never would be like, don't say that. I never really did that. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, no, I'm also talking more in terms of like a lot of bullying that happens nowadays, and especially like now with social media, it's the whole cyberbullying and so on. Just because someone came out of the closet, or I mean, anything in
Yeah.
general to do with sexuality is just there's a lot of bullying going on, right?
Let me ask you this,
and I think people and little boys, like primarily boys and men, they need to be able to be given the tools to deal with that.
Well, I agree with that, but now I'm really curious because straight men do act different if there's a gay man around. They might be a little act a little tougher or try to seem a little more macho or manly. I've seen that I see that a lot. I've seen that a lot. I haven't been out. It's been COVID. I haven't been out. But let me ask you this though.
We're having the same interaction right now. I don't.
Well, we're friends. Well, we're friends.
I don't think I do. Yeah.
But hold on. Okay. We're friends. We're enlightened, or we're friends. We're
woke is the right.
I honestly don't know.
Is the new age terminology for this stuff, apparently.
Yeah, I think it's just
I don't consider myself to be woke, but I'm just saying that's what people.
Anyway, so we're enlightened. I think the difference is more when you're in junior high school, and you're starting to see differences. You want to be popular. You want to get the girls, right? So if somebody is less than, if they're gay or different, you want to point that out. I did it. Oh my God, I bullied a kid because he was more gay than me. And everybody, instead of them picking on me, I'd rather them pick on him.
Wow.
It was awful.
That's
but I mean, but crazy, that's really, I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I just knew I was saving myself. And he was treated awful, and he was treated horribly. And I watched it happen. It was awful. At my 25th high school reunion, his name is Joey. My 25-year high school reunion, I went up to him and I apologized. And he was very gracious, but I apologized because it was awful. But at the time, that's what I felt I needed to do. Otherwise, it would have been me.
So we're tying this back in a circle. You were authentic to him on the 25th.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I just felt, yeah, authentic. Yeah. I guess we are. Listen, man, I think we're at
You're a man, and you practice what you preach,
man. Anyway, man. So listen, let's call this a day. Sure. Let me say thank you to everybody. Thank you to Addie, all the way in London, the United Kingdom. Cheerio, have some tea. So that was stupid. So let me say thank you to Addie, and thank you to everybody who's watching or listening. This is Nice Guy Deep Dive. Hopefully we'll see you. This is episode 3, right? So we're getting better at this, I think. Yes, anyway, did you want to say anything before we go?
No, just thanks for listening, and as always, good to talk to you, Ben. And
yeah, it's great talking. I know, right? I'll see you same channel. Okay, bye everybody. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.